I want to talk about a player whose peak simply does not get enough attention, and that's Todd Helton from 1999 through 2003. Whenever people discuss the greatest hitting peaks in baseball history, the same names always come up: Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Barry Bonds, Albert Pujols, Hank Aaron, and maybe Mickey Mantle, maybe Miguel Cabrera. But one guy who almost never gets mentioned is Todd Helton. And honestly, that's kind of crazy because from 1999 to 2003, Todd Helton had one of the greatest offensive peaks the game has ever seen. Not just one great season, not just two seasons. I'm talking about five straight seasons of absolute dominance. Now, immediately, whenever Todd Helton gets brought up, people say one thing: Coors Field. And yes, I'm going to talk about Coors Field because that's always the biggest criticism. But before I get there, let's actually look at what he accomplished. From 1999 through 2003, Todd Helton, he averaged 37.8 home runs, nearly 198 hits, a 343 batting average, and a 1.072 OPS. Those numbers are ridiculous. I'm talking about a player who combined power, batting average, plate discipline, and consistency all at the same time. He wasn't just hitting home runs, he wasn't just getting singles, he wasn't simply drawing walks, he did everything. During that 5 year stretch, you could make a very legitimate argument that Todd Helton was the best pure hitter in baseball. Striking him out was incredibly difficult. Getting him to chase pitches was difficult. Getting him to make weak contact was difficult. Every single at bat felt like a battle, and that's what made him so dangerous. His 2000 season, especially, was completely unbelievable. He hit a 372 average, had 42 home runs, he collected 216 hits, drove in 147 runs, and finished with a 1.162 OPS. Every single time he stepped to the plate, it basically felt guaranteed that something good was going to happen. Think about how difficult it is to combine all those numbers together. In the past 50 years, a player hitting 40 home runs, collecting 200 hits, and batting over 350 in the same season has only happened just four times. And Todd Hilton, he achieved that. That season honestly deserves to be mentioned among the greatest offensive seasons of the modern era. One of my favorite things about Todd Helton as a hitter was his approach. He never looked like he was forcing anything. Some hitters become obsessed with home runs. They swing out of their shoes. They chase pitches, trying to hit the ball 450 feet. That wasn't Todd Helton. If the pitch was outside the strike zone, he often wouldn't even bother swinging. He trusted his eye, he trusted his approach, and because of that, he walks a lot. Over those 5 seasons, nearly 50% of his plate appearances resulted in either a hit or a walk. Think about that. Half of the time Todd Hilton came to the plate, he reached base with a hit or walk. For comparison, you can argue that Hank Aaron's best offensive stretch was from 1967 through 71. During that period, about 43% of his plate appearances resulted in a hit or walk. Now, obviously, Hank Aaron is one of the greatest players ever, and career value matters. Nobody is saying, I'm not saying Todd Helton had a greater career, but during those peak years, you can actually make the argument that Todd Helton was even more dangerous hitter every single time he stepped into the batter's box. That's how incredible he was. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Coors Field. A lot of people hear Todd Helton's numbers and immediately say, well, he played in Colorado. And honestly, I think some of that criticism goes just way too far. First of all, Coors Field has existed since 1995. If it was so easy to put up these kind of numbers, why didn't everybody do it? Why didn't every Rockies player hitter suddenly become Ted Williams? Outside of Larry Walker, nobody came remotely close to Todd Helton's peak. Todd Helton wasn't putting up good numbers, he was putting up historically great numbers. Second, he still hit extremely well on the road. Were his home numbers better? Of course. But guess what? Almost every hitter performs better at home. But Todd Helton was still an outstanding hitter when he wasn't playing at Coors Field. He wasn't suddenly becoming a replacement level player once he left Colorado. And honestly, the same thing applies to Larry Walker. Larry Walker was a Hall of Fame talent regardless of what team he played for. Todd Helton was a Hall of Fame hitter regardless of what team he played for. The environment may have helped, but talent still matters. The late 1990s and early 2000s were also loaded with offensive stars. Barry Bonds was putting up video game numbers. Sammy Sosa was hitting 60 home runs. Jim Thome was mashing. Ichiro Suzuki arrived and immediately became a superstar. Ken Griffey Jr., he was still one of the faces of the league. Luis Gonzalez exploded offensively. Vladimir Guerrero was becoming one of the most exciting hitters in the game. There were so many great hitters during that era, and because Todd Helton played in Colorado on a team that usually wasn't the best, he often got overlooked. The Rockies weren't winning divisions, they weren't making deep playoff runs, they weren't getting national television exposure. So while all these other stars were receiving attention, Todd Helton, he was quietly putting together one of the best offensive peaks baseball has ever seen. And I think that's why he remains underrated even today. When people discuss the complete hitter argument, Todd Helton, he deserves to be part of that conversation. He had power, he hit for average, he got on base, he controlled the strike zone, he hit for extra base hits, and he rarely struck out. He was consistent every single year. So, no, Todd Helton isn't usually the first name people mention when talking about the greatest offensive peaks, but maybe he should be, because if you value power, batting average, plate discipline, consistency, and simply being a nightmare to pitch against, then 1999 through 2003, Todd Helton absolutely belongs in that conversation. So that'll be it for this video. Leave a comment, tell me what you think. I much appreciate it if you click that like button. Thank you for watching.